In this video, I'm going to teach you how to refine the swatches that you create in your materials library so that they don't tile in renderings that you create. And so we're going to begin by determining the expanse of an application of material needed for a rendering. We'll determine the size of an existing material swatch, and then we're going to manipulate and modify a material swatch in Photoshop so that it is the correct size for the space it's going to be rendered. And once this swatch is the correct size, we're going to save it and import it into the materials library and apply it to a surface and look at it in the rendering. So just to begin, let's say that your firm or your design team has decided that they're going to do a rendering of this space right here. And so if you set up your camera view to look from standing here and looking in this direction, this is the resulting view. Now, a good perspective has the same amount of uh, ceiling and floor. And so I'm going to stretch out my view just a little bit to show that. And maybe with the complexity, they want to show that little partial wall here. And so this is your resulting floor plan, or pardon me, this is your resulting perspective. So in order to make sure that there's no tiling in this view whatsoever, we have to create a swatch that's roughly this deep, that's going to come from this wall here to right at about here to the end of this view. And it's going to have to be wide enough to go from this wall to outside of that wall. So let's take a look at the floor plan and see. And the reason why I'm being really specific about the view that we're taking and the size of the swatch is because, as you'll find, the process that we're about to do is labor intensive, and it's only something that you do when you really want a perfect rendering and you know exactly what the rendering is going to be of. So let's take a look at our design plan. So you can see here, this is about the size of the space that we're going to need. So if we create a detail line, let's just say, we go to annotate, detail line. So we need one that's about here, where our camera was. And our camera actually went from there to right about here. Okay, so the swatch that we need to create for this space needs to be at least 14 feet wide by 16 feet long. Now, to be safe, we could use multiples of 3 feet, and that will make sense in just a minute. So let's go ahead and create a swatch that's 18 feet deep by, this width is 14, so we'll round it up to the multiple of 3, so 15. So we're going to need to create a swatch right about that size so that when we create that camera view that we see right here, there are no seams. Okay? So, and it's actually very similar to how you lay carpet. If you were to sell a client carpet that comes in rolls, you would have to determine where the seams are going to be on the floor plan. So just keep in mind that, you know, this is not something that's just really specific to making swatches in Revit. It actually has broader applications. In any case, let's go ahead now, and I'm going to go to Photoshop, and I'm going to open the swatch that we used from the exercise where we found a swatch online and tiled the floor. Now, this swatch here you can see is 3 inches wide by 3 inches wide in Photoshop. But in the real world, we already did the math and we imagined that each of these planks was around 4 feet wide. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So each of this, so this swatch in real life is 3 by 3. So it makes sense then that we'll be able to create a composite of this flooring by copying and pasting a series of these 3 foot wide swatches to create essentially one big swatch that's 18 deep by 15 wide. So in order to do that, we have to create a new canvas. So we're going to go to File and New. Now, this is a pretty low resolution file, as you can see right here, because it's pulling from the resolution of the file that's already open. Now, generally speaking, you know, the higher the resolution of any image, the crisper and clearer it is. So obviously in a rendering, we want really high resolution, but the higher the resolution of an image, especially if we're now going to, you know, duplicate it, you know, a bunch of times in this composite, all of a sudden it's going to become a really big image that's going to slow your rendering down in Revit. So just kind of balance that for right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it at 72, but ideally it's, you know, up to 300 is good. Somewhere between, you know, 100 and 300 is probably going to work well. If I change this to 200, all that's going to happen is that the image itself, when I copy it over, will be smaller. So I can just show you. That's fine. You'll see what happens. Now, remember, this canvas that had this swatch on it is 3 inches wide, or 3 feet wide in the real world. And we want a carpet that's 18 feet wide and 15 feet deep. So what we need to do is on our next canvas, we can switch this to inches. We need the width to be 18 inches and we need the height to be 15. Because remember, think about that box that we made in Revit right here. So I'm creating that canvas right now in Photoshop. Okay, and let's go ahead and hit create. All right, so let me bring this over. Now I'm going to bring this swatch over and put it in here so that we could create a series of copies of it. But you can see right here, there's a little white border here. And that's going to make tiling really obvious. There's also this sliver down here that's not a full length, and that's going to create some issues down the road. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab just on the inside of that, and you can see my guides are pink, and they're gonna start to snap a little bit up to those edges. So I'm going to scoot it over just a little bit here and try to crop out that white line on the edge. So I'm going to, now that it's selected by using my rectangular marquee, I'm going to hit Control C for copy, and I'm going to bring it in and Control V for paste. And you can see, because this original image was low resolution, when I bring it into a high resolution canvas, it gets really small. So I'm going to bring it up here. I'm going to hit that move command, and I'm going to hit Control T to stretch it. And if I hover and stretch this way, it's going to maintain the proportions. I hit enter now, and I'm going to zoom in. And it's still looking pretty good. I just don't want my Revit file to get so big that it crashes. So and in addition, not only will it crash, but a big Revit file will take up a lot of space on your computer. So you want to make sure that you're kind of being mindful of the size of your files. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is show you a series of commands that then you will be able to replicate and do what we call finesse this image so that you start to get rid of the seams and things. But the first thing I'm going to do is select this layer and duplicate it. So I just right-clicked and hit duplicate layer. And I'm going to move it over like this. And see? That one is right over here. The next thing I'm going to do here, this is where the tiling happens. And this is, right now, it looks exactly like it did when it was tiled in that earlier video. A couple of things that I can do to kind of make this image a little bit different than this one, to do sort of an initial transposition, I guess, or transpose it just a little bit before we start to finesse the rest of the lines, is I can click on this and I can go to transform. And I can flip horizontal and watch what happens. It'll flip it like there's a mirror line right here. Okay. And the other thing that I can do is go to edit, transform, and I can flip vertical. And then it's going to flip it over a mirror line that's right here. Now, it didn't really save me a whole lot of time because I still have a bunch of little itty bitty pieces of wood here that I still have to finesse. But those are two ways to kind of make this flipping and replicating go a little bit faster without having to do quite so much repair work. Now, once those two pieces are in place, I can start to show you some of my tricks to finesse these images. I'm going to begin by right-clicking and merging down, and that makes those two layers that were separate. Now they are the same layer. See, I can turn them off and on. All right, now I'm going to zoom in and teach you how to do a couple of commands that will blend this edge a little bit here. So there's two things that I'm trying to do. I'm trying to blend edges, and I'm trying to eliminate really short planks, because you don't have real short planks when you're doing a flooring like this. So let's get rid of some short planks first. I'm going to extend this one, and I'm going to grab it right here. And I'm going to grab this section right here. Right click, layer via copy. So then there's a little piece right there that's copied. So then I hit move. You can see I'm going to move it over just like that. And now that plank is longer than it was before. There's a little itty bitty seam right there. Okay. But before I can blend it out, I want to merge that layer down so that the piece that I just moved is now a part of that original layer. So I do Control E to merge it down. Okay. Now, I can't really see that seam very well, but I can do this clone stamp tool, which is basically grabbing pixels from one side and bringing them over someplace else. So let's say if I hit the Alt button, I'm going to grab pixels from here, and I click. And then I can start to, then wherever I click, see that little plus sign where the plus sign pops up? That's where I'm grabbing pixels from. And it just kind of blends in those edges a little bit. Now, don't overdo it. Don't get greedy, because otherwise it can get really kind of overly photoshopped, and that doesn't look good either. All right, I'm going to go ahead and use the clone stamp tool right here, because this is easy to kind of buff that out. So I'll grab pixels from here, and I'm just going to just blend just ever so slightly. You can see it picked up some of the pixels from that piece over there. Okay, so that one's buffed out a little bit. This one here, we have the same issue, two short planks. Oh, actually, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a clone stamp here first before I. Okay. Anywhere else? Let's go ahead and grab this one. If you want to make your circle a little bit larger or smaller, you can switch the size down here, make it a little bit smaller. You can see here mine's fuzzy on the edge. See, if you go here to hardness, mine's not hard at all. It's real soft. And so that's why you're getting kind of that fuzziness, and it can be helpful or kind of make things look a little bit too imprecise. So just kind of manage that. Okay, I'm going to teach you a different command now. Instead of the layer via copy, I'm going to do a layer via cut. And I'm going to grab this one here, and I'm trying not to get too much of that piece above it. I'm using my arrows to move that marquee. Right click, layer via cut, and now I'm going to grab it, hit the transform button, and stretch it. Now, if you just grab it like that, it's going to retain the relationship between the length and width. If you don't want that to happen, then if you hold down your shift button, it'll allow you to just stretch it in one direction. Hit enter, there you go. Okay, select that layer, Control E to merge down. So you've got a couple of others that you can do here. Again, it's really just trying to still get that variety, but not at the expense of sort of too much work. I'm going to do the same here, a layer via cut. Control T for transform, hold down my shift button, and I'm going to stretch this all the way across. And then merge down, Control E. Okay, there's a couple of other ones here that you will still have to blend out. But what I'm going to do now is zoom out a little bit more. And now all that work, and look how much I have. I still have a lot more to do. So what I'm going to do now is try to duplicate this layer, and using that flip horizontal, flip vertical, mirror, etc., try to get as much area covered without having to do quite so much photoshopping. Now, you can see here, I still have those little planks, and this is a labor of love to get a really good quality rendering of a material. So again, I'm going to pause the video right now, and I'm going to try to blend out some of these areas while also trying to duplicate layers, and also using those commands where we are flipping horizontal to try to remove. So you can see I saved myself a little bit of work. So there's a butterfly, like butterflying effect here that can be fixed by just moving. And that's, you got to be real careful. But again, there's still some things that need to be kind of buffed out a little bit with the clone stamp tool to get rid of that seam. And then maybe I can copy it again and kind of finesse these things. What I need to be careful of is once I've created this row, I'm going to have to switch it up. Otherwise, we're going to see this repeating, and that's almost as bad as tiling. So I'm going to pause for a second, work on this a little bit. You can see here I've done quite a bit of layer via copy and moved and stretched out some pieces, and kind of I broke up a little bit of the tiling that was happening with these pieces here. You can see I took one and stretched one out here. Again, just trying to be careful to not stretch things too much so that they're pixelated, but just kind of trying to finesse out all of those seams. So now I've got one big strip, and I'm going to keep working on it and copy, paste, mirror, flip, and see how this looks with a little bit more work. So I'll pause again. Okay, so before I merged my layers down, I just wanted to show you how much quicker it goes once you've got that first row done. A couple things if you're new to Photoshop. This is your history tab or toolbar. You can place it by hitting window and hitting this checkbox, and this allows you to revert to different, it's a record of all the steps that you've used in Photoshop, and you can go back and revert instead of doing undo, 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 or Control Z a bunch of times. The other thing that I wanted to just make sure that you know is just, again, make sure that you're saving everything. Make sure that you are turning layers on and off. And I don't think that there's anything else that you need to be aware of as far as tools go. What I do want you to do is just go ahead and hit the Control E to merge your layers. Okay. And then I'm going to hide this button over here. Now keep in mind, inches are feet and feet are inches here. So this is our swatch. It's now 18 feet wide, 15 feet deep or long, or however you want to, anyway, it's 18 by 15. So I'm going to hit Control S for save. And it's saving as a Photoshop document, which we don't want it a Photoshop document. We want it to be saved as a JPEG. So I'm going to save it as a JPEG. I'm going to call this my wood flooring swatch final. And I'm going to hit save here. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is go to Revit and go to my materials library by going to Manage and Materials. And I'm going to create a new material for that swatch, and I'm going to do it exactly the same way as I did the original one that that we saw in the previous video. I'm going to go to the oak flooring here because I like the settings of it, and I'm going to just right click and duplicate. I already have deleted the old swatch that was tiling, so it's not there. I can use that name again. Okay, and so I've got, oh, maybe it is still there. Let's go ahead and I'm going to delete the old one. Okay, now I'll rename this. Okay, so for the color, for just the graphic representation, I'll go ahead and change it to gray just in case I have two woods in the same place. The rest of this will leave the same. For the rendering appearance, I'm going to go ahead and change this. And I'm going to browse for that swatch that I just made. Okay, now look, it's all that work and it's only 2 feet, 3¼ inches. So what I need to do is change the sample size. And so the width is going to be, let's see, the width is going to be 18 feet. And we need to unconstrain the proportion so that it's not a square. And then this one is going to be 15. Okay. Good. Okay, so there's our carpet of wood tile. What else do we need to check here? Nothing else. That one's done. And then I had checked stain a while ago, and I just realized it was unchecked. So keep in mind, if you want to stain it, you can like select all the different stain colors and it'll change the color a little bit, but we don't want to stain. The rest of this finish glossy, let's go ahead and do satin because it's distressed. You can see this preview cube here is really cool. So let's go ahead and just see what happens now. Let's hit apply. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and paint. Okay. And let's just see how it looks in a realistic finish. Good, look at that. What's really nice too is that because the edges were so neatly done, you really aren't even going to see the tiling where there actually is tile on the swatch. So let's go ahead and take a look at the 3D view in a realistic. And look at that. Looks beautiful. And it's really not pixelated. Once you export this rendering into a really high quality one, it should look pretty good. Now, if it looks a little bit fuzzy, it's only due to the fact that it wasn't the highest resolution version. But look at this, it looks gorgeous. Now, this, you can see this, the frame of this window must be a highly reflective material because it's reflecting the wood off the floor. But it looks just beautiful. So you can see here, I paused for maybe a total of 5 minutes as I was doing my work, and I know I'm a little bit faster maybe than you are, but for as long as this video is, you know, it's actually a small price to pay your time for what ends up being just such a huge difference between this and the tiled version that we've seen in the past. So it's worth the work, it's worth the time, and now you've got that swatch ready to go in your materials library. So you've been able to identify in this video the size of the swatch that you need based on your rendering. You've been able to bring it into Photoshop and use the commands for um, creating a new canvas. You're able to convert a small swatch and bring it into a larger composite that's, you know, many times its size. So we went from a 3x3 swatch to a 15x18 swatch. You also learned the Photoshop commands of how to use the clone stamp tool, how to do a layer via cut, layer via copy, and you were able to transform your image by both flipping vertically and horizontally and stretching out layers that you copied, and then merging all the layers and saving it as a JPEG. So we covered a lot of ground in this video, and what a beautiful result we have.